For this part of the presentation, we're going to discuss eugenics as it was applied to persons with intellectual disabilities in Canada. And when I say was, that's up for debate about whether it's not still happening. It's being investigated currently. So if you're unfamiliar with the concept of eugenics, it's defined as the practice or advocacy of controlled selective breeding of human populations as by sterilization to improve the population's genetic composition. There were two acts in Canada that created regulatory boards for the purposes of sterilizing persons with disabilities and persons who were considered undesirable, and that included racialized groups such as the Indigenous persons in Canada. So Alberta's Sexual Sterilization Act was used from 1928 till 1972, and British Columbia's Sexual Sterilization Act was used from 1933 to 1979. In 1986, there was a court case that had to do with the sterilization of a person with an intellectual disability, and that was where our focus for the presentation came from. So Eve was a 24-year-old woman who was described as being mentally retarded, which at the time was the medical terminology for intellectual disability. Her mother wanted her sterilized for a number of reasons, including the fact that she felt she would be required to look after the child, and at the age of 60, she felt this would be too difficult. It went to the Supreme Court of Canada, and they dismissed most of the claims. The main ruling had to do with the non-therapeutic use of sterilization. So the official Supreme Court of Canada ruling was that the procedure should never be authorized for non-therapeutic purposes. That means it had to be deemed medically necessary. Now, I believed in starting this project that Eve's Law ended eugenics in Canada. However, there is a Human Rights Senate committee that received a report in 2020 that detailed concerns that there is still forced and coerced sexual sterilization in Canada. As the report was submitted, the quote that I'm using here is that the committee's preliminary hearings on forced and coerced sterilization confirmed its concerns that this horrific practice is not confined to the past, but clearly is continuing today. Its prevalence is underreported and underestimated. The committee is deeply concerned that along with Indigenous women, other vulnerable and marginalized groups in Canada are affected, including women with disabilities, racialized women, intersexed children, and institutionalized persons. So, as much as it is considered illegal to sterilize in Canada, it is an ongoing practice as of a report from 2018 of an Indigenous woman in Saskatoon. The committee was designed to investigate the crimes against Indigenous persons, but you'll note their quote includes women with disabilities, and that's why there's still quite a concern about how persons with intellectual disabilities are treated in terms of their right to reproduce. And a question that I'll pose for you is, when someone convinces a person to either consent to sterilization or a forced IUD, as what happened to Britney Spears. Now, Britney Spears did not have an intellectual disability. She had a mental health diagnosis. But non-surgical sterilizations, such as through birth control, they are still illegal. They're still being done. And there's no way of knowing how many of these persons are having it done against their will. And that's the concern of our presentation, which is the need for education of persons with disabilities, first and foremost to prevent victimization and to allow them to exercise their rights.